let me put on the blackboard how you can go through that thing. Here's my estimate of earnings per share. Okay, let's say it's, I'm just going to pull numbers out of the hat. And here's my PE for the market is 18. Here's my industry premium, which is 0.9. And here's my company, which is, let's say, 110, 110%. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take 90% of that, which is would make the industry, I hope I'm getting these numbers right, 16.2. And then I take 110% of that, which would bring this to 17.8. So if the market is at 18, this company, whatever it is, should be at 17.8. And I just took 90% of that, and then 110% of that. And then, to find out what it's worth, I multiply it by $2. Okay? So its fair value or its intrinsic value is going to be $35.6. So that's what I think, and let's say this is over a 3-year, this is the earnings in 3 years out. Okay? So this is what its fair value is going to be in the 3rd year. 12, 13, 14, at the end of 2014. So if I want to know what my total return is if I buy this, and assuming that I was right, this is what it's worth, and other people come to realize how brilliant I am, and everybody agrees with me, whatever the price is today, it will move to that price. That's the equilibrium price. So let's say today, so the total return is going to be the price return plus the dividend is going to give me the total return. So let's say the price today, and I don't have a calculator, so is 28. That's way too high. Say the price today is 28. Okay. Then the price return over 3 years is going to be, the easiest way to calculate it is this way. 35.6 divided by 28. Okay. But I've got to take this to the 1/3, because that's the return that would happen over 3 years. And I'm interested in the average return on an annual basis. Okay? If it happened in 1 year, it would just be 1. If it happened in 5 years, it would be 5. If it happened in 10 years, you're much better at this than I am, because I don't think that far. But then I've got to subtract out a 1 here. Okay? That's how you calculate the price return. Price at the end of the period divided by the price at the beginning of the period divided by the price at the beginning of the period. That gives the percent return. But then if I want to calculate the annualized, I've got to do. And that's where this is just a real shortcut to doing all that nonsense. Just take the price at the end divided by the price at the beginning. So what does that work out to? 7 on 28 is 1/4. To the 3 is probably a return of a little under 8%. 7.8?
Like 8.33%.
8.33? Okay. Logs are hard to do in your head. So this is 8.33% per annum. Okay. The expected price return over that 3-year period is 8.33. But I want this. And most of these companies pay a dividend. If the company doesn't pay a dividend, that's just 0 and you're done. But if the company does pay a dividend, you've got to take the dividend in dollars and divide it by the price in dollars, and this comes out as a percent. Call it 2%. Okay? Now, this can change over time. If they keep the dividend constant and the price goes up, that's going to go down. But a lot of companies try to keep their dividend yield pretty constant. Okay? There are times where, for tax reasons, they don't like to pay out dividends. There are times for tax reasons they like to pay out more. On average, over a long period of time, the typical stock in the S&P 500 pays a dividend of about 1.8%. Right now, today, that number is about 2.2%. But it'll probably stay around that level for the next couple of years unless the tax laws really change, and they might. I mean, we've got possibly a new administration coming in. So to this 8.3, I've got to add the 2% to get it. Notice I chopped off 1 decimal place already. You said 8.33, I put that initially, but I've got it down to 10.3. You don't get these answers to 3 or 4 decimal places. 1 is plenty good enough. Now the question is, do you buy this if you expect its return to be 10.3? Now remember I said, on average, over time, the stock market returns 10%. So if this is 10.3 and the stock market is 10%, your immediate answer might be, no, you don't buy it. It's why buy one stock that's going to return 10% when I can buy a diversified portfolio, the S&P 500, it's going to return 10%. I'm always better buying a diversified portfolio than one stock. But that's not where you stop. Because remember, what you've got to compare it to is you've got to compare it to the risk-adjusted total return. And that's going to be the expected return on the T-bill minus beta. I said that the stock market is going to return 10. Let's say this is 2%. Minus 0.02. The risk-free rate is 2%, T-bill rate. Beta 1 minus 2. So the expected return, what I should be getting on this stock, is 2 plus beta times 0.08. Okay? Now, if the company has a beta of 1, then its expected return would be 10% if the beta equals 1. And the difference between 10.3 and 10 is inconsequential. at $28, this stock is fairly priced. Okay? Its expected return calculated this way is no different from what I think its risk-adjusted return should be. Now, if the beta were 2, the expected return should be 18% if the beta were 2. Then is it a buy? No, it's a screaming sell. You should be expecting 18%. Your best estimate is you're going to get 10, so there's no reason in the world to buy it. Okay? On the other hand, if the beta were 0.7, if the beta were 0.7, the theoretical return should be 7.6. And now, even though it's got the same return as the stock market, still it's much more than what its expected return should be. Okay? So in a portfolio, where you put in all sorts of different stocks and hopefully wind up with a beta close to, let's say you're interested in getting a market kind of return. You put together a portfolio, you hope you wind up with a beta of 1, then you've got the same volatility as the market. This has got alpha, because this one should only be contributing 7.6, but it's going to contribute 10. So even though it's only got a market return, now it's a buy. And it all depends on what the beta is. So who gets the file?
Yeah, one.
So what I'd really like you to do is, you know, if I were you, I would sort of try to split up into teams and maybe have 4 teams and have 2 teams working on a revenue forecast and have 2 teams trying to figure out what kind of valuation parameter to put on it. And that way, you know, hopefully you'll get at least 1 revenue forecast and 1 valuation parameter. And in the best of all possible worlds, you'll come up with 2 of each, and then you can argue about who's got the better numbers. And then once you've got that done, then you can go through this exercise and figure out